Hello and welcome to Keeping It 100 Coalition Conversations, the official podcast for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Metropolitan Baton Rouge chapter. I'm your host, Shanice Lewis, and today's conversation is a deeply personal one for me, and it's about something many of us avoid talking about until it's too late: estate planning. I recently lost my father on November 4th, 2025. And while sitting in the funeral home making arrangements, I was honestly shocked by how expensive everything was. Now, thankfully, my father had insurance policies in place and we were prepared for the cost, but I know that isn't the reality for many families. I asked the funeral home's office administration what happens when people can't afford their services. Her answer broke my heart. She said that people sit there and cry, some beg and plead for help. Imagine grieving the loss of your loved one while also carrying the stress and fear of not knowing how you're going to pay for their funeral arrangements. She told me that some families leave the funeral home and never come back. Some probably never have a funeral at all. That moment stayed with me. It made it painfully clear why it's so important to get our affairs in order, not just for ourselves, but for the people we love. Estate planning is not about wealth, it's about protection, preparation, and peace of mind. It's also about making sure your family is not left with the financial bind during one of the most difficult times of their lives. That's why we're starting this conversation today as we gear up for an important event this Saturday, January 17th. We're hosting the Secure the Bag and Protect the Legacy Estate Planning Seminar. And this seminar is free to attend, and it's designed to give our community the tools, knowledge, and resources needed to take action and to protect what matters most. To help us begin this conversation, we are joined today by a group of incredible experts who you will also see this Saturday at the event. Joining us today is Deidre the coolest. I'm sorry, you told me how to pronounce it and I messed it up already. Roberts. She's going to tell us the pronunciation of her name. Rashana Hunter and Kay Richardson. So welcome, ladies, to the show. This is a very important topic.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Lewis. And it's Deidre Deculus, Robert. You got it. You were really close.
It was so much going on. I had a brain freeze. Sorry about that. So we're just going to jump right into some questions. So when people hear the word estate, they often think mansions and millionaires, because the estate we hear about often on TV is the Michael Jackson estate. So they think it's something, big time like that. But can you explain what an estate really is and why an everyday person has one? Any of you jump in?
I can take this one. Because in my capacity as an attorney, I do successions. I practice in a lot of different areas, but estate planning is one of my favorite areas to practice. I really got involved in it after the 2016 flood. And I'll talk more about that on Saturday because those are some of my best examples. But an estate, everyone has one. It's just a collection of your debts, your assets, everything that you own and owe is part of your estate, and it travels along with you in your life, and even after life, after you've passed, there is an estate for you, and that's what your family has to probate or put into succession. But before we get into all those legal mumbo jumbo jargon, don't think that you're any less than Michael Jackson, honey. Shanice Lewis has an estate. Kay Richardson has an estate. Deidre Deculus Roberts has an estate. I was in the back going, Deculus. I know Deidre. That's my sister. Rashana Hunter has an estate. And you, just like what my hero, my shero, Oprah says, you have an estate. You have an estate. You have an estate. Everyone has an estate. It's just the value of it varies from person to person.
So would a homeless person have an estate?
You're
If
absolutely
they
correct.
own anything, yes, they do.
Yes. And you'd be surprised, as long as you have a social security number or you are in existence on this earth, you have an estate.
Do you have an estate while you are living?
And even after you pass, it's just what happens to your estate once you pass away. So while you're living, your estate is your sole responsibility. Um, some people like to think there are ways around that. I hope we're not going to get into that on Beyonce's internet today. But
No.
Pretty much as long as you are on this side of the ground, you are responsible for everything that you own and you owe. So when you pass away, someone else has to be responsible for that estate. And that's when things like wills, successions, probates, those kind of things come into place. But you do not get to pass off your responsibility because you don't feel like paying bills. Because trust me, if you could, I would already.
Right. And I wanted to start off with that because some people probably thought the seminar didn't apply to them because they might not know they have an estate, thinking it's a rich people thing. So that's why I wanted to start off with the basics. So what are the most basic documents every adult should have in place regardless of income?
I can take that one, Rashana. So I'm an attorney too by trade. It's not the hat I wear today. Today I'm the
Okay.
president of the Redevelopment Authority for East Baton Rouge Parish, but a last will and testament, right? A durable power of attorney is important to have. A healthcare power of attorney, a living will or an advance directive would be important to have. And in many cases, if you have a policy or retirement or something where you can leave beneficiaries, a designation of those beneficiaries is extremely important as well, especially on life insurance, any accounts that you may have. It would be crucial to have those. Rashana, is there anything else that you think should go onto that list?
If you can afford it, which you're going to have to make yourself afford it, get a supplemental life insurance, not just what comes with your employment, because surprisingly enough, $1 million goes fast these days. And I would do just stay on top of your credit checks. There are different free credit report options, but literally one of the first things I tell clients whenever they come in for a succession is to do a free credit check on the deceased person. Sometimes your name is so common. If John Smith passes away, they may have attached a lot of different debt to your John Smith that belongs to a different John Smith. So we need to separate that and make sure that that is not included in the wrong estate. One would also believe that a name like Rashana, nobody would be attaching anything to me, but you would be surprised. My name is very popular across the United States because it's popular in the Middle East. And so just don't sell yourself short. You popular, girl. So whenever someone passes away, the first thing, if you are coming to Hunter Legal or if you go to any attorney, I would advise you to get a credit check just to make sure that they aren't adding anything, because if they don't, then you could be responsible for the debt of that estate. So that means even after death, if someone sues you for what you owe, then those parties that are responsible for your estate will have to cover the cost of that out of the estate instead of, celebrating with what you left to them.
And I'll add to that, having your final wishes documented. Sometimes families may argue on what they would want and desire for your funeral arrangements or for your ceremony. So also having that document can alleviate a lot of stress and arguments amongst family members as well.
So let me ask you a question. Does everybody have to go through a succession? Because I'm an only child, and so I don't have to split anything with anybody. So we weren't doing a succession. Should I be doing it?
Everyone should do it. So, see, here's where it gets a little ticky. For the only children, y'all, please don't kill me. You may be the only child that you know of. That's a real situation. Okay. When I was doing, not shade free to you, Shanice, I'm sure you know your family history.
Yeah, nobody popped up yet. It's been 2 months.
When I was doing successions for legal aid after the flood, there were so many things that put a halt on the process because lots of people had family in different cities and states, and they they didn't know the real names. They knew the nickname of the person that they saw every other Easter, but they couldn't include them. And so then you have to put an like a whereabouts ad in those local papers to say that if anyone knowing the whereabouts of any relatives of such and thus and so who has passed away, please contact this attorney's office. That's right, Nishan, you sure do have an estate. Please contact this attorney's office because, you know, for more info. Because before we can get the goal is to identify all of the heirs, both known and unknown, before you open a succession. And just to go back to what Kay was saying, your end of life planning, that's for, I know in my sorority, we do that. We have a list of things that we want done for the sorority service. And it's in a red envelope. So people know what happens. And that's a lot of times whenever you're a part of different organizations, or if you know, when you're listing out your obituary, it's best to have all those things together in one place, because someone is going to be arguing over whether or not you're a member of this or active in that. And you don't want to have that, because they're already going to be arguing over which flavor flour did she have, and what color should the family wear, and how is everybody going to trust me. I had years ago when my grandmother passed, they argued over the pots, and these were not new pots. So whatever you can write down, nothing is too small. I promise you.
So what happens legally and financially when someone passes away without a will or an estate plan?
Well, it's not the end of the world. Things happen. So if you are without an estate plan, if you don't have a will, let's just say that, because an estate plan encompasses so many things. But if you don't have a will in place, then it defaults to the state law. So Louisiana law, okay, my blurred hat is going to be showing right quick because I geek out over this. But Louisiana law is very akin to the Bible. They created these laws to make sure that families are not without or left behind. So even if you don't have a will in place, your children are going to divvy up your estate in equal parts, unless there was a will to exclude them. If you've ever seen on TV like some comedy show where someone's like, you're out of the will, you can say that, but you have to write that expressly. You can't just say, oh, well, when Mama was sick, she never came to see her, so she doesn't get anything. As long as she is a descendant of Mama, a child, a grandchild, if that other child has passed, as long as the children of the person who has passed will inherit from their estate. So if you have 5 spoons and 5 kids, each kid gets a spoon. It gets a little ticky if, you know, other kids pass and things like that, but everybody is owed their due.
So you can't say she didn't come and help. She didn't help anything, bring food, pay no bills. She was nowhere around. You can't prove that.
Well, there are ways to do some things, which if you put, it gets a little bit more detailed, and I think that's a little bit past what we're doing. But for the most part, as long as that person has a child or has children, it goes equally to those children. If they don't have any children, then it goes back up and comes down. So it goes back up to your parents and then down to your siblings, and then how Louisiana sees the family tree.
Now, what is this? How somebody said when you don't have a will and don't have things in place, like the government can take your stuff away. Is that true?
I'm sorry, y'all.
You laughing or you sick?
I know, I'm laughing because, oh Lord, I hope we don't get canceled. The government can take your stuff for a lot of reasons. You know what? I'm not going to speak to that part. I'm going to let Deidre, she will branch the government.
I will give you the good answer. It depends.
There you go. That's the legal answer.
It depends on a lot of different circumstances, but safe to say that if you don't have anything in place, then you really are subject to the courts and how they move and handle that succession. And so you could find yourself where maybe assets are frozen, right, while it moves through the court, where you may have heirs property issues because then the court has to find everybody, right, notify everybody. You could run into issues where you have the inability to sell property or do anything with it because it could be tied up in a succession. And if those things sit for a long enough period of time, then different things can happen with it. So it really depends. It depends.
Can I add to something Deidre mentioned earlier when she talked about basically having your death on benefits individuals acknowledged on your bank accounts, for an example. And I'll tell you a story about my family. My grandmother did not have death on benefits or beneficiaries on some of her bank accounts. And so it was 14 years before the government notified my family that there were assets still waiting to be collected, right? And so just going back to Deidre's point, having assigned beneficiaries on the life insurance, your bank accounts, because based on the question that you asked, not that the government can take it, but they'll hold it after so many years where no one has notified or come up to try to find those accounts. Mm-hmm. So that's a way that it's not that the government took it, but they're holding it until that time and period that they get to you amongst the thousands of people before you. So it takes time. So
this sounds kind of overwhelming.
Right. Yeah, thousands of people is right. Kay, it's not making that up. People out of the wood. Just think about whenever you're going to a funeral and it's like so many people keep bringing Dr. Thunder cold drinks to your house and stuff like that. You're like, who is this? And I knew your grandmother when da 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 da, and that's cousin so and so from around the corner. Those thousands of people. That's what she's talking
about. Okay, we have a question from the audience. Is payable upon death on bank accounts a good thing?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I never even heard of that, so I don't even know what that means.
I'm gonna say, Sister Vanessa, I got to tell you, that is a strange term to me. I'm not familiar with it, but if I have to take it on its face, I would say no, because who is paying it upon the death? That means you're leaving it behind. And to be honest with you, every account is pretty much payable on death because it's anything that you owe. Again, what you own and owe is going into the estate. So I don't know about a good thing or a bad thing. I will say that if you can help your family alleviate your debt beforehand, please do so. When my father passed, this was years ago, he passed in 2000. I remember we had a bill for Radio Shack. I literally called Radio Shack and said my dad passed, and they wiped the bill. So sometimes you can, people will be kind enough and compassionate enough to, that's happened with, when my best friend passed, we wiped her AT&T cell bill. So I don't really know if that's answering your question because I'm not familiar with that.
I'm gonna jump in based on something Vanessa wrote. It as it relates to NEVI Federal Credit Union. Some banks have a form where you can. It's sort of related to, if you think about it, it's like a beneficiary. So it's where you document who you want the beneficiaries to be, but they use the word payable on death because it states that they don't have to go through the probate process. They're able to gain access to the funds once you show, the death certificate and that you're the beneficiary. So that means that it's not a part of the estate. It goes through the estate probate process. So it's almost like it being a beneficiary. So, but some banks use different terms and different names on their forms. So that's where that term comes from, as she mentioned on NEVI Federal Credit Union, because I am also a member, and that is the term that they use to assign beneficiaries to your bank account.
Got it. So I'm gonna get into specific questions for each of you because your knowledge kind of overlaps, but you still have specialties. So Rashana, we're going to start with your questions. Can you explain the difference between a will, a trust, and a power of attorney in simple terms?
Okay. So the easiest way to put it is the power of attorney exists for the life of the person. Okay.
Mhm.
It dies with you. That sounds morbid, but that's just the truth. It dies with you. And then once that person passes away, whoever they name to be their power of attorney, which we call an agent acting on their behalf, they no longer have any power because it dies with the person. Next, that will go into effect would be a will. A will only goes into effect once the person passes away. So if you name someone in your will to inherit something, like say, I'm giving away a sofa to my little cousin can't come in today and say, this is my sofa. She has to wait until I pass on and then do the succession, and then she would inherit the sofa. So the easiest thing is that a power of attorney is for the life of the person. The will is for afterlife. A trust can happen at any time. It can be when the person is uh, alive or passed on. You can put certain items and things into trust. Um, I
Now,
always
is trust
joke,
a wealthy thing, or trust is
no,
an everybody thing too?
anybody can, if you can spell trust, you can have a trust. I
Okay.
always jokingly tell my clients, Boosie always said in his song, he gave his kids a little trust fund so when they grow up, they can have a little fun. If it's good enough for Boosie Boo, it's good enough for you. There you
All
go.
right. So, what happens if someone becomes incapacitated and has no legal documents in place?
Then their next of kin, shout out to Kay, but their next of kin steps into place. So it's very important that even when you're healthy, um, something I had a little scare this week and I kind of kicked myself because I was like, these are the moments where you should really have a power of attorney. Even when you're healthy, you can put a power of attorney in place because it just says that if for any reason you cannot handle your affairs, that person would step in. It's very important to do it while you are healthy and
In
uh,
your right mind.
fluid and in your right mind, because I've gone to hospital room after hospital room with lots of witnesses and sometimes recording things to make sure that the person who signs over power of attorney is in their right mind when you're signing. Because sometimes, even if you can't make your own signature, an X at the mark on the line will act as your signature. But someone has to be there to testify if it gets challenged later that you were in your right mind and doing that. You can even have a power of attorney. I have a good friend who had she had power of attorney over her brother's a limited power of attorney over his affairs because he was out of the country and they needed to sell a car that was in his name. So it doesn't have to necessarily be about health and illnesses. It could just be for if for any reason you are incapable of handling whatever affairs, put somebody in place to do that.
Somebody from the audience asking, can a trust be penetrated? I don't know what that means.
I do, and that's longer than we have today, Pam Bruce.
Okay.
I'm gonna hope to see you Saturday, and hopefully that you can win this consultation. So you got to get your own. Y'all remember that? Well, never mind. I'll see you Saturday, Pam.
So, how often should estate plans be reviewed or updated, and what events should trigger an update?
Often, more than an argument. I would say at least annually, at the longest annually, and definitely more than an argument. I had a boss who would always say, "Don't let your temporary emotions make permanent decisions."
Mhm.
And so, just because somebody took your car and didn't put gas in it, that's not enough to disown them for from the future. So just think logically about if you were left behind, what would you want to handle things? Because like you said, Shanice, earlier, funerals are very expensive.
I was
You know,
shocked.
to buy a casket, it's a lot. Cremating people cost thousands of dollars. I'm
Mhm.
donating my body to science. My entire family is against it, but that's why I'm putting it in my estate plan, because it costs nothing to donate your body to science. And I hope to one day be a cadaver for a black doctor so they can, get more knowledge. That's how my legacy will live on. But don't just change your will because you're in a bad mood or somebody ticked you off. Sometimes things need to be changed, like if people pass away and you need to update things like that, or if you lose a piece of property. or gain a piece of property, you may want to adjust it for those reasons. But just because any way the wind blows, that's not enough.
Mm-hmm. And so let's move on to the next of kin plan. So Kay, tell us, what does next of kin planning mean, and how does that differ from the traditional estate planning?
So the way I like to explain it is it's really a complement to estate planning, because people have all of their documents and the wishes of what they wish of who to inherit and who gets what. And what I like to say is now the next of kin plan tells people what to do. And I'll give you a perfect example. People tend to, acquire a property from their grandmother, right? House is paid off. But a lot of times family members lose the property because no one knew that the taxes were due or where to pay the taxes, right? And so the next of kin plan helps document all those little details that sometimes, because grandma just did everything or mom just did everything, that we forget to transfer that knowledge to the next of kin, or to the person who's going to inherit those assets. So it's really about documenting the details that may not necessarily go inside of a will or a trust, so that the family can maintain the wealth and legacy for years to come.
Mm-hmm. So how can families organize important information so loved ones aren't left searching and guessing?
So what I like to tell people is, you start with the essentials. For example, your cars, the titles of your cars, where are they located, put them all in one place. Where are the deeds to the properties, have them all in one place. List all of your bank accounts in one place. Again, we want to ensure that people have access to these things, number one, so that in the event that the property or things go into a probate, the person who has to take over, which is usually termed as an executor, they're not scrambling and they're not trying to go through emails and going through lots of mails to find these things. And it makes life easier for them. And also it ensures that people are not wasting money, let's say for overdraft fees or late payments. Everything is documented in one place and securely for that go-to person or for whomever is going to be in charge. And I like to just say to people that it's not just about death, right? And so it can be, someone can end up in the hospital, right? And things need to be done. And so when things are organized, money is not wasted, things are not lost, and people can continue the process.
And I would add too. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I would just add to that, Kay gave a great list of things, but passwords are key, right? We don't think about it. We forget it. We have it pre-planned in our computer or in our phone. And if you have a password to your computer, then your family can't get into it, right? To pay those bills or to even know what you're tracking. So passwords is definitely something to add to that list, because that gives you access.
And Saturday, I have a whole list of other things that was going to be added to that list. So Saturday, they'll get all the things that they should have and documented. So yes.
Right. Yes. That's just a sneak peek. But I was going to add also, for us living in Louisiana, put it in like a sealed tight container, because for the 2016 flood, we had stuff under the bed and all that was ruined. So that, the flood or fire will destroy all of that. So I don't know if it's encouraged to have stuff digital or just buy the safes or the binders that are waterproof and fireproof. But
get all of that. Get a backup to your backup. Your fireproof safe. Use digital shared drives as much as you can, like OneDrive or I think Google has something. Google Drive.
Next of kin plan.
There you go. Next of kin plan.
Next of kin.
Right. And so what are some practical steps people can start today to start planning, even if they feel overwhelmed?
So again, we just mentioned some of those practical steps. Writing the passwords down, putting things in a secure place. People sometimes forget all the things that they have. So in that moment of, you're trying to rush to put things under power of attorney or go get a will because it's the last minute, you can tend to forget about some things. And that's also the importance of documenting sure that those things don't go to the government because you've forgotten to document them and list them. So that's just one of the things. And again, start having conversations. We don't have these conversations enough, right? And because people think, well, if I talk about this, then something's going to happen. Something's going to happen regardless, right? And so ensuring that you get over that fear and, thinking if I talk about it, then, if I don't talk about it, then nothing's going to happen. Something's going to happen. Start having those conversations and knowing that, as you start, it's not going to be perfect, but at least get started so that, again, I always say the what if moment. We never know when the what if moment can happen. So just be prepared as much as you can by taking the steps that we just mentioned.
Okay, I like that you said that, and you said the word insurance. Think of it as like having car insurance. You don't get it and then get in a wreck the next day, hopefully, if you do Hunter Legal for that too. But you have car insurance just to protect yourself in case something happens. Now, don't be like a lot of these people out here in Louisiana riding dirty. Don't ride dirty with your life. I got to figure out a way to make that a better sounding slogan.
I like that though. That's a great.
Stay tuned for that.
Okay, so now we're going to switch over to Ms. Deidre. So how does estate planning connect to economic empowerment and long-term community stability?
Right. So I think people need to understand, that estate planning is economic infrastructure, right? When titles are clear, when families can build wealth, when they can leverage property, when they can start businesses, when they can qualify for financing and pass those assets forward, we are creating an economic infrastructure for our family and our community as a whole. So when that's not there, what happens? Our neighborhoods become stagnant. Vacant houses multiply. Investment avoids that particular area, right? So one of the things we focus on at Build EBR, which is the Redevelopment Authority, is reducing those barriers to redevelopment by trying to detangle ownership, right? We have a land bank where we have property that we can leverage in the community, but there's a barrier there to having a clear title on some of those properties, right? And some of those properties have ended up in that land bank because they've gone vacant, they've been blighted, they can't connect, they can't contact family, they've become condemned, they've become adjudicated, and then the government has them, but they don't have control over the title. And so it just continues to bring down the neighborhood and the community as a whole. So when you think about estate planning, keeping families empowered, how they build those stable communities, that's really where economic empowerment and long-term community stability is built. And it starts with that family in that neighborhood, in that community, right? And you really have to envision it as economic infrastructure because it's the basis upon which we build everything, right? In terms of housing being infrastructure. Infrastructure is not just roads, water, sewer, it's access, right? You have to have community access, and that really starts with home ownership and how we can build wealth in community.
And when we talk about generational wealth, isn't this the number one way to accumulate generational wealth?
That's right. Property ownership and insurance are how you build generational wealth, right? So that you have your estate planning in place so that it's passed down through the family, but that you also have that accompanying insurance there that creates wealth that you can invest back into your family to leave them with funding to go along with the estate that they have inherited, right? And so that is really how you begin to create pathways for wealth for families.
Now, what role does education and access play in helping families take control of their financial futures?
Well, that's everything, right? Those things are everything. I had a conversation today with some folks, and they were saying, this guy said his daughter came home and said that she was taking a financial planning class that explained to her how banking works and what taxes are. And he was like, I didn't realize they were still teaching that in school. And I grew up at a very small rural community public school where we had to take civics and we had to take financial responsibility, where they taught you how to write a check, right? But we're very much in a digital age where our children and their children are moving away from that, and even some of the current millennial generation. But you have to have that education and that access for families. That's really the only way they can do it. So many families were never taught that a will is as essential as insurance. That's just not something we talked about. That's not something we passed down. Others assume that it's either it's too expensive or too complicated, right? So either you weren't taught it in your family because you didn't know it, right? You don't know what you don't know, or you assume it's too expensive or it's too complicated, kind of going back to what we opened up with, right? Everyone has an estate, but not everyone understands and believes that they have an estate, right? So when we provide education and accessible legal pathways, then families can move from reaction to preparation. We're very much in a reactionary mode a lot of times because we don't know, we haven't been educated, we haven't been taught. So that knowledge to me turns fear into confidence. And that's why that education is so important.
And speaking of education, sometimes that combats misinformation because I've heard too that sometimes people don't want to do the proper thing legally because they say the lawyer going to take all your money. You're not going to have nothing left. So
let me assure you that's
Attorney.
somebody is so far from the truth. I can't even begin.
the lawyer going to own the house after you get through.
The lawyer will not own the house. It's so, well, you know what? To those people, I say, just come try me out and see. You will all be pleasantly surprised. Much to the chagrin of my staff, because they all tell me I should charge more. But this is it's super important to me because I've had a lot of family and friends, pass away in my young, virile 40, nearly 5 years of life. And I will say, just on a personal note, I thought I was going to leave it for Saturday, but I'll give y'all a sneak peek. I had something happen to me this week that put me in a real bind. I had a huge medical emergency that came out of nowhere, and it put me down for the week. I actually have not done anything today, but I said I wanted to honor this commitment and muster up the strength to get on this podcast because the example of what happened to me this week is so important that I need to make sure to share it with others. I always say everybody needs a lawyer, even a lawyer needs a lawyer. But your lawyer, a lawyer is another lawyer's worst client. So I'm kicking myself because if I had, thank God for my family and my friends who stepped up this week when I literally physically could not move and could not take care of bills of work or anything. But now I know that I need to have, I've already started redrafting my will, but I'm putting a power of attorney in place. So if God forbid anything like that ever happens again and I'm not able to physically speak or move, then someone can step in and handle things and there's not an argument. So you could be listen, y'all know I eat like a 12-year-old skateboarder. So I won't say I was the picture of health before that, but you could be relatively healthy and then something smacks you in the face and takes you out and everyone is scrambling. So if not for yourself, just think about the people that you love having to scramble because you didn't plan. Not a lecture, but just a precautionary tale.
And that's a good point because we all think we have more time. But you don't know, what the days are going to be. You
That's
think
right.
you can do it when you're 80, but everybody don't make it to 80. I had a friend last week my age that suddenly passed away. So you don't know. So you need to start acting on this today. At least write something down today because you just never know.
Yeah.
So how can organizations like Build EBR help close the gap when it comes to financial preparedness?
So, we like to meet people where they are, right? And so we are partnering with both of the law schools here in Baton Rouge, Southern and LSU, legal clinics, Southeast Legal Services, different planners, community organizations like you all to provide, that education, those referrals, and those on-ramps for service. So, when we are able to connect estate planning directly to home ownership, land retention, redevelopment opportunities, and generational wealth, then that's part of our mission, to create thriving communities. And we take that very seriously at Build EBR, right? Our mission is to, promote equitable investment, innovative development work, and help to build thriving communities. So, that's how we can stand in the gap to help close the educational sphere, right? And those partnerships, I think, they're vital to the community because different organizations reach different audiences. And so the more that we can partner with, the more open we're willing to do that and happy to do that.
So as we said, this is just a sneak peek of what's to come for Saturday. But what can attendees expect to learn at the Secure the Bag and Protect the Legacy Estate Planning Seminar this Saturday?
Well, I think, it goes without saying that you're definitely going to learn what documents you actually need, how Louisiana succession law really works, Attorney Hunter, how to avoid heirs property issues, right? How to protect your home, your land, and your family assets. And then, of course, I think part of it is going to be debunking or breaking down some of those myths, right? I think Kay can probably speak to some of the things she's heard, right, in her career about what people think they know about successions and heirship, but what the truth is. And I think that's a large thing from my perspective that we want to bring is the real truth and explanation behind some of these things, because it can be a lot to digest, it can be a lot to learn, it can be a lot to try to keep everything together. But I think real straightforward answers is one of the key things we want to bring this week.
And who should attend this seminar, and why is it important to show up now?
Everyone should attend. It's now or never, really. Have y'all seen the news? We don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I'm going to say. I also hope, like Deidre said, to debunk. Really, I'm hoping that I plan to get my own next of kin plan from Kay, okay? Because I know even with doing this regularly, there's a lot of things I'm sure I miss. Yep. And I'm going to also give this huge disclaimer that as you've heard us say 1,000 times, I am a lawyer. I don't break the law. So if you think that we are going to give you some kind of workaround so that you don't have to pay taxes and that you can become your own sovereign entity no one is teaching that. This is not Scamosity 101. This is how to protect yourself, protect your assets, protect your interests so that your family has a future and you have an actual legacy to leave behind.
And what's one takeaway you hope every attendee leaves with, especially the Black community is who we're reaching out to? What do you hope they leave with?
For me, I would just say starting the conversations, because a lot of people avoid the conversation, and having the ability to feel confident on starting and having the conversation.
Anyone else?
I would say I'll give the lesson I learned for myself this week, which is do it today. If you can do it today, because, we love tomorrow, but we don't always know that tomorrow is there. Now, don't overexhaust yourself and wear yourself out. But if you can do it today.
And I'll say, I'm sorry, I think too, people need to understand, and to Kay's point, people don't like to talk about it. Estate planning is not about death. It's about preparation. Mm-hmm. It's a very loving act to take these steps to not leave your family who are grieving you also in disarray, right? So it's not about death. It's really about being smart and being prepared.
Yes, and so join us this Saturday. We're going to be at the main library. This event is free. So if you thought that this didn't apply to you, now you see that this applies to everybody. So you need to come get this free knowledge. And in addition to being a free event, we have some contests going on too. Let me pull those flyers up as well. We have a contest with enter to win a next of kin plan. And explain to us, Kay, what the next of kin plan is. Is this an actual book you wrote, or it's a workbook?
So actually, the Next of Kin plan is a digital repository so that families can be able to add their wills, and their passwords, and the bank accounts, and all the details that sometimes is in someone's head that they need to document. As I think Deidre mentioned, sometimes people have a digital safe, or they may have the a hard safe or a folder. This is a digital aspect that keeps everything locked and loaded. So when someone needs to access this, it is readily available at your fingertips.
And if somebody is watching and not in Baton Rouge and not able to attend, do you sell this on a website?
Yes, I do sell it at nextofkinplan.com. And I am coming from Atlanta, Georgia to be a part of this because this is such a very important conversation. So I am going to be there. If I'm coming, you all come.
Right. And so you're going to be having next of kin plans for sale?
Yes, it is online for sale, yes.
But I mean, saying at the event Saturday, will you have some for sale?
Oh, it's digital. It is a digital platform.
Oh, okay. So we also have a second contest going on with Miss Rashana Hunter. And this is to enter to win a free estate planning consultation. And Rashana, tell us what the consultation includes.
It includes, usually my consultations are about 45 minutes to an hour of whatever questions you have about estate planning. Now, I'm hoping that that there is an actual example and not just another little mini seminar, because I'd have to tell you got to come back for the real thing. But no, this is my real life consultation. I have an estate planning questionnaire with instructions that I give to every client who comes in to ask about either of them, a will, a trust, a power of attorney, anything like that.
Well, awesome. So we have those contests and the winners will be announced Saturday. So you got to be in person to win. So we hope to see you Saturday. Thank you so much, ladies. I learned so much talking to you, and especially I'm going through the process right now. So this is right on time for me. And I look forward to seeing you all Saturday. This is going to be an amazing seminar.
Thank you. See you all Saturday.
Yes, see you Saturday.
Thank you so much. And thank you to my guest tonight. And thank you for all of the phenomenal work, ladies, that you are doing in the community. The ladies in the audience saying, I'll see you all Saturday. I will be there. See you all Saturday. So if you haven't registered, make sure you register. Somebody post the link on our Facebook, but you could also look on our Facebook page and find it, or on our Instagram page to find all of these flyers that I showed. So to stay tuned with everything we're doing, visit our website, ncbwmetrobr.org, and join our email list. If you want to support the work we're doing, you can always give us a donation through our website by clicking the donate tab in the menu. I've been your host tonight, Shanice Lewis, on behalf of the Metropolitan Baton Rouge chapter and President Dinesh Piper. Thank you for tuning in to Keeping It 100 Coalition Conversations. And until next time, be blessed.